The 3rd Infantry Division is a combined arms and light infantry division of the United States Army based at Fort Stewart, Georgia. It is a direct subordinate unit of the 18th Airborne Corps and U.S. Army Forces Command. Its current organization includes 2 brigade combat teams, 1 aviation brigade, a division artillery and support elements. The division has a distinguished history, having seen active service in both World War I and World War II. History: the division fought in France in World War I. In World War II, it landed with Gen. Patton's task force in a contested amphibious landing on the coast of Morocco, North Africa, overwhelming Vichy French defenders in November 1942. In 1943, the division invaded Sicily in July, and invaded Italy at Salerno in September, before fighting in France and finally Germany. Medal of Honor recipient Audie Murphy, featured in the Hollywood movie To Hell and Back, was a member. The division also served in the Korean War. From 1957 until 1996, the division was a major part of the United States Army's presence in the NATO alliance in West Germany. World War I. The 3rd Division was activated in November 1917 during World War I at Camp Green, North Carolina. 18 months later, it saw combat for the first time in France. At midnight on the 14th of July 1918, the division earned lasting distinction. Engaged in the Aisne-Marne offensive as a member of the American Expeditionary Forces to Europe, the division was protecting Paris with a position on the banks of the Marne River. The 7th Machine Gun Battalion of the 3rd Division rushed to Chateau-Thierry area amid retreating French troops and held the Germans back at the Marne River, while surrounding units retreated. The 3rd Infantry Division, including the 4th, 30th and 38th Infantry Regiments, remained steadfast throughout the Second Battle of the Marne, thus earning its nickname as the Rock of the Marne. The rest of the division was absorbed under French command until brought back together under the command of General Joseph.It. Dickman, and by the 15th of July 1918, they took the brunt of what was to be the last German offensive of the war. General of the Army's John "Blackjack" Pershing, who commanded the entire American Expeditionary Force, called this stand one of the most brilliant pages in the annals of military history. During the war, 2 members of the division were awarded the Medal of Honor. Casualties during the war were 3,177 killed in action with 12,940 wounded. Commanders M.G. Joseph.T. Dickman, B.G.J. Irons, M.G. Joseph.T. Dickman, B.G.J. Irons, B.G. Charles Crawford, B.G.J. Irons, B.G. Charles Crawford, M.G. Joseph.T. Dickman, B.G. F.W. Sladen, M.G. Beaumont B. Buck, B.G. Preston Brown, M.G. Robert L. Hauser. World War II. The 3rd Division is one of the few divisions of the U.S. Army during World War II that fought the Axis on all European fronts, and was among the first American combat units to engage in offensive ground combat operations. The 3rd Infantry Division saw combat in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, Germany and Austria for 531 consecutive days. During the war, the division consisted of the 7th, 15th and 30th Infantry Regiments, and supporting units. The division first saw action during the war as a part of the Western Task Force in Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa, landing at Fedala on 8 November 1942, and captured half of French Morocco and fought in the Tunisia campaign, which came to an end in May 1943 with the surrender of almost 250,000 German and Italian prisoners of war. 2 months later, on 10 July 1943, the division, now under the command of Major General Lucien K. Truscott, made an assault landing on Sicily, like a town on the beach, to West called Ordagafi and Molarella, and on the beach to east, called Falconara. The division, serving under command of Major General Omar Bradley's 2nd Corps, itself part of Lieutenant General Patton's U.S. 7th Army, fought its way into Palermo before the armor could get there, and raced on to capture Messina, thus ending the Sicilian campaign, where the 3rd had a short rest to absorb replacements. 9 days after the invasion of mainland Italy, on the 18th of September 1943, the 3rd Division came ashore at Salerno, where they came under command of Major General John Lucas' 6th Corps, and now under Lieutenant General Mark Clark's U.S. 5th Army. The 3rd Division was destined to see some of the fiercest and toughest fighting of the war thus far, serving on the Italian front. Seeing intensive action along the way, the division drove to and across the Volturno River by October 1943, and then to Cassino, where the Battle of Monte Cassino would later be fought. After a brief rest, the division was part of the amphibious landing at Anzio on the 22nd of January 1944, still as part of 6th Corps, and serving alongside the British 1st Infantry Division. It would remain there for 4 months in a toehold against furious German counterattacks, and enduring trench warfare similar to that suffered on the Western Front during World War I. On the 29th of February 1944, the 3rd fought off an attack by 3 German divisions, who fell back with heavy losses 2 days later. In a single day of combat at Anzio, the 3rd Infantry Division suffered more than 900 casualties, the most of any American division on one day in World War II. The division's former commander, John Lucas, was replaced as head of 6th Corps by the 3rd Division's then commander Lucien Truscott. In late May, 6th Corps broke out of the Anzio beachhead in Operation Diadem with the 3rd Division, now commanded by Major General John W. O'Daniel, in the main thrust. Instead of defeating the Germans, General Clark, the 5th Army commander, sent the division on to Rome. This allowed the German 10th Army, which would otherwise have been trapped, to escape. The division was then removed from the front line and went into training for the Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France. On the 15th of August 1944, D-Day for Dragoon, the division, still under 6th Corps command but now under the U.S. 7th Army, landed at Saint-Tropez, advanced up the Rhone Valley, through the Vosges Mountains, and reached the Rhine at Strasbourg, 26–27 November 1944. After maintaining defensive positions, it took part in clearing the Colmar pocket on the 23rd of January, and on the 15th of March struck against Siegfried Line positions south of Zweibrücken. The division advanced through the defences and crossed the Rhine, the 26th of March 1945, then drove on to take Nuremberg in a fierce battle, capturing the city in block-by-block fighting, 17 to 20 April. The 3rd pushed on to take Augsburg and Munich 27 to 30 April, and was in the vicinity of Salzburg when the war in Europe ended. Elements of the 7th Infantry Regiment serving under the 3rd Infantry Division captured Hitler's retreat at Berchtesgaden. During World War II, the 3rd Infantry Division lost 4,922 killed in action, and 18,766 wounded, with a further 636 who died of wounds. Commanders M.G. Charles F. Thompson, B.G. Charles P. Hall, M.G. John P. Lucas, M.G. Jonathan W. Anderson, M.G. Lucien K. Truscott, Jr., M.G. John W. O'Daniel, M.G. William R. Schmidt. Korean War Commanders: M.G. Robert H. Seoul, M.G. Thomas J. Cross, M.G. Robert L. Dulaney, M.G. George W. Smythe, MG Eugene W. ridings. During the Korean War, the division was known as the Fire Brigade for its rapid response to crisis. 3rd Infantry Division had been headquartered at Fort Benning along with its 15th Infantry Regiment. The 7th Infantry Regiment was located at Fort Devens. 3rd Infantry Division initially arrived in Japan where, as the Far East Command Reserve, it planned post-conflict occupation missions in northern Korea. In Japan, the strength was increased by augmentation from South Korean soldiers. They landed at Wonsan and received the 65th Infantry Regiment as the 3rd maneuver element before moving north to Hungnam and Maijendong. At Maijendong they established a defensive position with the 65th Infantry and began fighting. 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 7th Infantry were on the left flank. The 15th Infantry was between the 7th and 65th Regiments. 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry was set as the nucleus for Task Force Dog, which was commanded by Brigadier General Armistead D. Meade, Assistant 3rd Division Commander, and sent north to conduct a relief in place with 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment at Chinhangni, the south end of the 1st Marine Division, and support the withdrawal of 1st Marine Division and Regimental Combat Team 31 from the Chosin Reservoir. 3rd Infantry Division's TF Dog was the rearguard, keeping the pressure off of the Marine Column. The division established, along with the 7th Infantry Division, a collapsing perimeter around the port of Hungnam until the last of 10th Corps was off the beach. The port of Hungnam was blown up to deprive the enemy the use of those facilities as the last of the 7th, 15th, and 65th Infantry units boarded ships. The division went on to support combat missions of the 8th Army until 1953 when it was withdrawn. Notably, the division fought valiantly, besides its extremely essential and able contribution during the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, at the Chawon-Kumfa area, Jackson Heights and Arrowhead outposts, and blocked a CCF push in the Kumsong area in July 1953. 3rd Infantry Division received 10 battle stars. 11 more members of the unit received Medals of Honor during the Korean War. 8 were from the 7th Infantry Regiment: Jerry K. Crump, John S. Abaga, Jr., Charles L. Gilliland, Claire Goodblood, Noah O. Knight, Darwin K. Kyle, Leroy A. Mendonca, and Hiroshi H. Miyamura, whose award was classified top secret until his repatriation. 3 more recipients were with the 15th Infantry Regiment: Emery L. Bennett, Ola L. Mize and Charles F. Pendleton. During the Korean War, the division had 2,160 killed in action and 7,939 wounded. Cold War to the millennium. Commanders. The division was stationed with the 5th Corps and 7th Corps in West Germany from near the Czech border westward throughout various towns including Wurzburg, Schweinfurt, Kitzingen, and Aschaffenburg. In August 1961, a few days after the Berlin Wall was erected, a reinforced company from the 7th Infantry Regiment in full battle gear was ordered to travel along the Autobahn from Aschaffenburg in Bavaria to West Berlin. This was to assert the right of U.S. forces to travel unhindered from West Germany across the western part of East Germany to West Berlin. After the Berlin Wall was built, it was not known if the East German forces would attempt to impede or restrict the movement of U.S. troops when crossing East Germany while trying to reach West Berlin. The unit arrived in West Berlin without incident, confirming the right of free passage. In November 1990, following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, more than 6,000 3rd Infantry Division men and women deployed with the 1st Armored Division on Operation Desert Storm as part of the Allied coalition. They participated in the Battle of Medina Ridge, which was the largest tank battle of the conflict. The 3rd Brigade was credited with the destruction of 82 tanks, 31 armored personnel carriers, 11 artillery pieces, 48 trucks, 3 AAA guns and captured 72 EPWs, with the loss of 2 Bradley cavalry vehicles, 30 WIAs and 1 Kia. Later, nearly 1,000 soldiers deployed to southeastern Turkey and northern Iraq to provide comfort to Kurdish refugees. In late spring of 1991, the division supplied senior-ranking officers and non-commissioned officers, along with a military police company, to Task Force Victory. Stationed in Kuwait, the task force was to provide division-level support to the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Those elements of 5th Corps attached to the task force returned to the home units in early September 1991. As part of the Army's reduction to a 10-division force, the 24th Infantry Division was inactivated on 15 February 1996, and reflagged to become the 3rd Infantry Division. In 1996, the division was redeployed to Fort Stewart, Fort Benning, and Hunter Army Airfield, Georgia. The division repeatedly demonstrated its deployability since then by maintaining a battalion, and later a brigade task force presence in Kuwait. It has also moved sizable forces to Egypt, Bosnia and Kosovo in partnership training and peacekeeping missions. In 1996-97, the 3rd Infantry Division Detachment, Rear Tactical Operations Center, which is a unit manned by the Georgia.Army National Guard, was mobilized and served in Operation Joint Endeavor. During this time, the 3rd IDRTOC served under the 1st Infantry Division and later the 1st Armored Division, respectively, serving in Bosnia, at Camps Dallas and Angela, near Tuzla under the 1ID, and then in Croatia at Slavonski Brod, under the 01AD, serving the Assistant Division Commander for Support, then BG George Casey. Global War on Terror Commanders: M.G. Buford Blunt, M.G. William Grant Webster, M.G. Rick Lynch, M.G. Tony Cucolo, M.G. Robert B. Abrams, M.G. John M. Murray, M.G. James E. Rainey, OIFI. Early in 2003, the entire division deployed in weeks to Kuwait. It was called on subsequently to spearhead coalition forces in Operation Iraqi Freedom, fighting its way to Baghdad in early April, leading to the end of the Saddam Hussein government. The 1st Brigade captured the Baghdad International Airport and cleared and secured the airport, which also resulted in the division's first Medal of Honor since the Korean War, awarded to SFC Paul Ray Smith. 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division made the much-publicized Thunder Run into downtown Baghdad. The 2nd Brigade was redeployed to Fallujah, Iraq during the summer of 2003. The division returned to the United States in September 2003. Order of battle during 2003 invasion: 1st Brigade, 2nd BN, 7th Infantry Regiment, 3rd BN, 7th Infantry Regiment, 3rd BN, 69th Armor Regiment, 1st BN, 41st Field Artillery Regiment, 2nd Brigade, 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry Regiment, 3rd BN, 15th Infantry Regiment, 1st BN, 64th Armor Regiment, 4th BN, 64th Armor Regiment, 1st BN, 9th Field Artillery Regiment, 3rd Brigade, 1st BN, 15th Infantry Regiment, 1st BN, 30th Infantry Regiment, 2nd BN, 69th Armor Regiment, 1st BN, 10th Field Artillery Regiment. Beginning in 2004, the 3rd began reorganizing. The division shifted from 3 maneuver brigades to 4 units of action, which are essentially smaller brigade formations, with 1 infantry, 1 armor, 1 cavalry, and 1 artillery battalion in each. The former Engineer Brigade became the 4th Brigade at Fort Stewart. Each of these units of action engaged in several mock battles at the National Training Center and Joint Readiness Training Center, and preparation for a second deployment to Iraq. OIF-3. In January 2005, the 3rd Infantry Division became the first Army division to serve a second tour in Iraq. The division headquarters took control of the multinational division Baghdad MNDB, headquartered at Camp Liberty and with responsibility for the Greater Baghdad area. 1st and 3rd Brigades of the 3rd Infantry Division were placed under control of the 42nd Infantry Division, and later under the 101st Airborne Division in MND North. In preparation of this deployment, a 4th Brigade was organized and became the first cohesive brigade combat team sent into a combat zone by the U.S. Army. Cohesive in that it fulfilled the table of organization requirement of such a unit. The California Army National Guard's 1st Battalion 184th Infantry Regiment served as one of the brigade's 2 infantry battalions, as well as the detachment from the Hawaii Army National Guard's 29th Brigade Combat Team, the 299th Infantry. Also the 48th Brigade Combat Team from the Georgia Army National Guard and Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 295th Infantry Battalion from the Puerto Rico Army National Guard served in this operation. 269th SAMA was assigned to Camp War Horse in Iraq. By mid-2005, primary elements of 269th SAMA 3rd Brigade's 3rd Infantry Division was redeployed to Ramadi, Iraq, replacing elements of the 2nd ID. They ran joint missions with the 2nd of March DIV and elements of the Pennsylvania National Guard. OIFV. The division redeployed to Fort Stewart and Fort Benning in January 2006. On the 17th of November 2006, the Army announced that the 3rd Infantry Division is scheduled to return to Iraq in 2007 and thus become the first Army division to serve 3 tours in Iraq. The division headquarters became the leadership organization of MNDC, a new command established south of Baghdad as part of the Iraq War troop surge of 2007. In support of operations in Baghdad, the unit 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry was detached from 3ID and assigned by General Petraeus to 3rd BCT, 82nd Airborne, who was under the command of the 1st Cavalry Division. In 2008, 82nd Airborne and 1st Cav deployed home, and 7 Cav was handed over to 3rd BCT, 4th Infantry Division under the command of the 25th Infantry Division. They would remain under this command until 3 to 7 CAV's redeployment back to Fort Stewart, being reattached to the 3rd Infantry Division. Similarly, 1st Battalion, 64th Armor was detached from 3ID and attached to 2nd BCT, 1st Infantry Division under 1st Cavalry Division, and later under 2nd BCT, 101st Infantry Division under command of 4th Infantry Division. Reassignment of 1st Brigade. In the fall of 2008, the 3rd Infantry Division's 1st Brigade was assigned to serve as the on-call Federal Response Force under the control of NORTHCOM. The combatant command assigned responsibility for the continental United States. The brigade remained at its home station of Fort Stewart, Georgia, and is training to deploy domestically in response to terrorist attacks or other national emergencies. The brigade will be trained in responding to WMD attacks, crowd control, and dealing with civil unrest. The force was renamed Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, or High-Yield Explosive Consequence Management Response Force. Its acronym, CCMRF, is pronounced CSMRF, and the unit is now under the daily control of United States North Northern Command's Army North, whose mission is to protect the United States homeland and support local, state, and federal authorities. The unit is a multi-branch force with service members from the 4 branches of the United States Department of Defense. Redesignation of 4th Brigade in March 2009. 4th Brigade reorganized from a mechanized heavy brigade to a light infantry brigade. As part of this reorganization, 4th Battalion, 64th Armor was reflagged as 3rd Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment. OIF-7. The 3rd Infantry Division assumed command of the multinational Division North, now United States Division North, in October 2009. This milestone marked the division's 4th tour in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. The division has elements operating in every area of Iraq as the mission changes from Operation Iraqi Freedom to Operation New Dawn on the 1st of September, 2010. With the advent of Operation New Dawn, the focus will shift from combat operations to stability and advise and assist operations throughout all Iraq's provinces. In the course of Operation Iraqi Freedom up until the 24th of September 2010, 436 members of the division were killed in action. Operation Enduring Freedom. The Combat Aviation Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, deployed to Afghanistan for a 13-month tour. The brigade was the first unit from 3ID to deploy to Afghanistan. During the tour, 3rd CAB soldiers flew about 26,000 missions, including 800 air assaults, and were responsible for about 2,500 enemy casualties. No soldiers from the brigade were killed during the tour. 3rd CAB is slated to deploy to Afghanistan again in January 2013. The 2,500 soldiers will deploy with 3rd Special Troops Battalion for a 9-month tour. The MON Air will be operating out of Kandahar Airfield in the RC South area of operations, relieving the 25th CAB. Both the 3rd CAB and 3rd STB will fall under their parent division when the 3ID Headquarters and Headquarters Battalion deploys in August and takes over command of RC South from 82nd Airborne Division HQ. The 2nd Heavy BCT's 2 Combined Arms Battalions also deployed individually to Afghanistan. 1st Battalion, 64th Armor Regiment deployed in March 2012. They are attached to the 3rd Stryker Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division from Joint Base Lewis McChord, WA, to help train Afghanistan National Security Forces to take over in their country's security operations. 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed a month earlier. They are tasked with providing security to units conducting contingency operations. Both battalions will serve 9-month tour. In December 2012, the 3rd Sustainment Brigade deployed for its 5th deployment over the last decade and first to Afghanistan for 9 months in support of Operation Enduring Freedom 1213, led by Colonel Ron Novak and CSM Daniels, deployed to Kandahar with 276 soldiers. The brigade provided sustainment and retrograde support to the 3rd and 4th Infantry Divisions, 1st and 2nd Marine Expeditionary Forces, and International Security Assistance Forces operating in Regional Commands South-Southwest, and National Support Element West. The brigade assisted in the closure and transfer of over 61 forward operating bases while simultaneously providing sustainment to the force. Additionally, the 3rd Sustainment Brigade provided direct direct support to the 1st and 2nd Brigade Combat Teams and the Combat Aviation Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division. In February 2013, the 4th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, 3rd Infantry Division, deployed to Logar Province and Wardak Province, Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. 6th Squadron, 8th Cavalry Regiment was tasked with securing Logar Province and disrupting the almost daily rocket attacks on Forward Operation Base Shang. 3rd Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment was tasked with securing Wardak Province's highly volatile Highway 1. The soldiers of 4th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, 3rd Infantry Division returned home in late November 2013 after serving a 9-month tour